Scholars, elders, brothers, sisters, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Ali, and I'll be your host for tonight. So on behalf of MCASI Leicester, I want to thank you all for coming today, and spread a hearty welcome to our first Syria Awareness Day. Before I carry on, I want us all just to take a minute and really appreciate what you've all achieved today. As I speak, you're all here, sitting together, regardless of what sect you belong to, regardless of deep sectarian tensions elsewhere in the world, to be here today, regardless of stereotypical views, misrepresentations, you're all here today to learn more about a conflict that is killing 5,000 people a day, and that's left 2 million refugees seeking asylum. So we sit here tonight, we put aside our differences, and we learn together about a crisis that is getting worse every single day and demands our attention. And to aid this, we have some honorable guests and some fantastic speakers who have taken time out of their very precious schedule to be with us here today and impart their knowledge and insights of the current crisis in Syria. The event will be very much discussion-driven, rather than a set of very boring monologues. So I urge you all to ask questions by raising your hand. A mic will then be passed to you, and you'll be given the opportunity to ask a question. So, without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker for tonight, Suleiman Nagdi, a community advocate of international repute for over a quarter of a century, a committed volunteer in the community for over 25 years. Suleiman has worked on many diverse issues at a regional, national, and international level. He was awarded an MBE by Her Majesty the Queen in 2002 in recognition for his long years of service to local communities relating to regional and national issues. Suleiman has many strategic roles in the community. He is chair of the Leicestershire Interfaith Forum and a member of the Leicester Council of Faiths, Faith Leaders Forum, and many other dialogue groups involving Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Sikhs, and Jews. Suleiman also plays a pivotal role in the area of criminal justice, law and order, and other matters. He has served as a magistrate and as a trustee of Futures Unlocked, a group involved in the rehabilitation of young prisoners. He also serves as a governor on the board of the East Midlands Community Contact Unit that supports people deemed at risk of radicalization. So, Brother Suleiman, as you may know, Anjem Choudhury recently led the first sectarian protest in the UK in London. What organizations exist to prevent young people from becoming radicalized, particularly in light of what's happening in Syria?
Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Firstly, I'd like to register and put on record my heartfelt thanks to the committee, to the masjid here for putting such an event together and for reaching out to different sections of the community to gel together our relationship. We normally talk about interfaith work, but I think intrafaith work is also needed. Muslims within themselves normally have many divisions, and we need to find ways of bridging the gap and working for the common humanity, which should be in the forefront of all our minds. You made mention about Anjem Choudhury. First of all, it must be understood that this particular individual, a self-claimed cleric, does not speak for the vast majority of the Muslim community. In fact, my work with the Home Office indicates that he has no more than 200 or 250 followers. However, the world media certainly puts a spotlight on this individual, giving him airtime to speak and so to claim to have the mandate to speak on behalf of the Muslim community, which must be resisted at all times and rejected. The issue that we talk about and I've been asked to speak about generally is the issue of extremism and how it penetrates the communities and the danger that, if not put in check, will involve our children and children and future generation. Violent extremism per se has no place in any civilized society, irrespective of where it comes from. Somehow, many of our young people feel that there are great injustices done in other parts of the world, be it through foreign policy or whatever the case may be. But we must realize that we live in a democratic process whereby we can use the political or the legal process to actually advance our displaced or disagreement in relation to what the government feels. But certainly to take the road into extremism itself will create the next generation of people that will be unfortunately very difficult for us to be in control of. The work that I'm involved in, of course, is at different stages and at different levels. There are consultation documents that I've been involved with the Home Office on the whole prevent agenda. There is issues around working with the East Midlands Community Contact Unit that supports the Channel project that operates nationally, and certainly the East Midlands Community Contact Unit works with the 5 police regions within the East Midlands. Its idea is to provide intervention supporters, people who can speak generally to the younger public, but can be somebody much older, to stop them going down. So what we are talking about, going down the road of violent extremism, so we're talking about a stage where it's in the pre-criminal stage. Nobody's committed a crime, but certain indicators show that an individual is going down a road that could be dangerous for themselves, their family, and the rest of community. Now, not only is it to do with religious motivated extreme views, but it has to do with far right, animal rights, etc., all other forms of extremism which has to be curbed. It's important that people that are actually here, people that are within the education, within the health sector, that may be part and parcel of the congregation here today, equip themselves to try and understand the early signs that young people normally show and to look for support. Now remember, the support I'm talking about is a multi-agency support. It's not security, it's not police-led, it's led by different agencies and certainly has intervention providers from a vast range of the community who help serve the community. In fact, we have one here, Riaz Ravat, who works for the Channel project. He's sitting on my left. These individuals are normally helped. Now, certainly, I think within Leicester or Leicestershire, we have something in the region of 50% of those with religious motivations and those with far right, but places like Lincolnshire can be 98, 99% far right. So it depends on the makeup of the community and where they come from. Also, the age range tends to be those from a younger generation, from the Muslim community are in the mid-teens going upwards, and those for far right is normally much earlier. And the reasons for this is usually there is one or both parents involved in the radicalization of the child, so certainly somebody from a far right movement. Now, why is this important? This is important, and what has it got to do with Syria? I'll tell you what it has to do worldwide. If we can create a generation of people who feel that they can take the law into their own hands and without following due process, eventually make the trips to these parts of the world where there's conflict and feel that they are aiding a particular side in itself, can be dangerous for us. And the reason for this is these issues are far more complicated. It's not black and white. There are wheels that move within wheels. There are issues that people address from international points of view. And mostly, and I'll be quite honest with you, I do not think they're even religiously motivated. I think they are geopolitical views that people hold, and it has to do with resources, land, etc. But the place of Syria has an important place in the hearts of the Muslim community, and of course we have a great attachment to that part of the world, as we have with Palestine, as we have with Jordan and various other places close by, what we normally call Sham, the greater area. So it is important for us to be aware of what's happening. But the worst thing that can take place is we can let that sectarian divide that's been created in that part of the world to come here to our streets in Leicester, and a division between the Shia and the Sunni community, which must not be allowed to happen. We cannot allow people to put a wedge between our communities as a result of political gain for people in other parts of the world. And we need to be mindful about this. Now, how are we mindful about this? We need to have a discourse. We need to talk about it. We need to discuss it with our children as they're growing up, to understand that between the two great schools of thought, we have more in common than we have in divisions or in separation. Why do we always concentrate on the differences and very rarely concentrate or put efforts in relation to issues that's of commonality. Now, commonality in itself can help us in various ways. Certainly in the United Kingdom, there's issues of service provisions that the Muslim community need. In fact, Bashir Bhai that's sitting at the back there, he's one of our volunteers for the Muslim Burial Council that we run, and out of our burial facility that serves sections of all communities, be it health provision in relation to halal food, prayer facilities at hospitals, etc. There are a lot of common issues here that we need to work towards instead of concentrating on what the divisions and what the differences are. And despite maybe people will agree or disagree, let's face it, the vast majority of us, which includes myself, are born within a certain family unit, brought up within the norms of the societies that we live in, and it's the norms of that society make us what we are. So sometimes we all think that we made a conscious decision into following one particular way or the other, but how many of us have actually made that conscious decision, or is it simply because we are born in a particular family and we continue down the road, and somehow we sit on this ivory tower claiming that we all have the absolute truth and everybody else is wrong. And I think we need to move away from that position. To me, it's very simple. The divisions themselves should not in itself cause any difficulty. In fact, Islam allows for the differences of schools of thought all within it. We are all people who believe in the one supreme being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We believe in the final of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we send salutations to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all the scholars and his family that came after that. The differences may be on a political stand, leave it as that. But I think as Muslims, let's reach out to each other in our common humanity to understand that we inherit this land, this country, and the world to live close to each other. And let us not forget that the Prophet ﷺ came not to divide us. He came as a mercy. He came as a mercy upon all creation, not Shia, Sunni, Christian, Hindu. Upon every creation that's been created, he came as a mercy to all of creation. Let us leave that in the forefront of our mind and work towards creating an understanding between each other, love for each other. And love is quite a powerful word, and people often sort of shy away from it, but we have to wish for our brother the best that we wish for ourselves, and that is the teaching that our faith gives us. I'm aware that time is very short, and I'm sure some of the issues will be brought up much later, and I won't hold on to the microphone much longer because I've been told that I'll just have a few minutes to say a few things. Jazakallah for listening, and inshallah let's hope the rest of the program goes well.
Thank you. Focus on commonalities, fantastic. I'm also delighted to welcome Sajjad Jiyad. After studying economics and politics at Queen Mary, University of London, Sajjad completed an MA in Islamic Studies at the Islamic College. Thereafter, he undertook a role as lecturer in Islamic theology, history, and law. He also teaches research methodology and supervises students working on their final year dissertation. He's a senior researcher at the Center for Islamic Shia Studies, where he's produced work on Shia identity of Samara, and is currently working on a monograph regarding Sheikh al-Tusi. Sajjad is also senior manager at South Salam Foundation, where he oversees management of the UK projects and the humanitarian projects in Iraq, and is a UN NGO liaison in New York. Following a period of study at the Hawza in Qom from 2004 to 2006, he's continuing his seminary education and is also seeking to start a PhD in political Islam soon. So, Brother Sajjad, what can we do in the UK to help relieve the crisis in Syria?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to thank MKSI Leicester for their warm welcome that they afforded us. I'd like to thank everybody who has made it here. I know all of us are fasting. It's been a long day. Some of you have very busy lives. So taking some of your precious time to be here with us, to be from people from other schools of thought, and to discuss a topic that some of us feel uncomfortable with, it's much appreciated. Jazakumullah khair. Now, with regards to the situation in Syria, I think if we mention the word Syria at the moment, if we did a poll, everybody would say Syria equals tragedy or war or conflict or death. This is what everybody could adhere to at the moment when they say the word Syria. Now, us as Muslims and as followers of the Holy Prophet, surely we should stick to the Sunnah of the Prophet. And there is a hadith that says, if you see something wrong, you should try to change it. If possible by hand, if not with your tongue. If you cannot do this, and at least within your heart. So there are stages. And likewise in NGO work and humanitarian work, there are stages for an individual to be able to act upon. The first stage is awareness. Awareness for you and awareness for your family. So, number one, we should try to find out what exactly is the situation on the ground. What is going on? What is the conflict about? Who's suffering? Who's benefiting from this conflict? And try to then educate the people around us. So my close friends, so my family members, maybe some of the people who don't have time for the news. A lot of us nowadays, we don't have even time to read the news. We stick to maybe something on Twitter. Even if that, sometimes we pick up a free paper in the street. In London, it's on the underground. So try to educate yourself about what is the situation on the ground. Once you've educated yourself and those around you, the second stage is about fundraising for the humanitarian charities that are raising funds for aid and development on the ground. So we have organizations that are giving out to anybody who needs it in Syria, regardless of whether they are pro-government or anti-government, regardless of whether they're from this sect or that sect. So you as an individual could do an event, for example, in this center over here, or in your local school, maybe in your university society, to try to gather some funds, because at the end of the day, these are human people who are suffering. It doesn't matter which sect they're from, which religion they're from, it doesn't matter what their political affiliation is. We are seeing the pictures, the images, the video clips, we watch it on the news, we are seeing refugees, we are seeing children being orphaned, we are seeing people who are facing a hot summer without any kind of support, and a cold winter that has passed without any kind of support. So raising funds is at least for the humanitarian side of things. Let's leave politics aside and let's focus on that. So fundraising is the second stage. And the third stage of NGO work is actually what the American military term is boots on the ground. Is actually to go there and do something yourself. I recently came back from a trip to Iraq and Syria, and I saw that the need isn't just for somebody to sit in London and press a button and send something. If you have the time, if you have the ability to actually physically go and do some work there are people out there who need all sorts of help, medical help, education, some people who just need you helping set up a tent. We can send a tent from here to Syria, but these people need help setting it up. Some people want you just to come and see what condition they live in, so you can come and express it to the rest of the world. They need a free media, for example, to tell the truth on the ground, because unfortunately the media is screwed in pretty much every country in the world these days. So you need independent human rights lawyers, advocates, solicitors, journalists. So this is the third step of action, which is physically to be there on the ground yourself. And like the respected Haj Suleiman said here, not for violent extremism. Your needs are not physically to go out there and add to the conflict. Everybody knows that adding more weapons to a conflict is going to lead to more bloodshed. We don't need soldiers, we don't need weapons on the ground, we don't need fighters. What is needed is lawyers, doctors, journalists, humanitarians, solicitors, people out there who are going to give aid to the situation. If you see a fire, you don't add fuel to it. You try to turn it out, you cool it down. And this is what is required in Syria. So on the basis of the work that I'm involved in and the experience that I've had recently in these two countries, I pretty much see, inshallah, some of you are capable of adding to this on one of these three levels, either awareness, or by fundraising, or inshallah, if you have the time and the ability to do something physically on the ground. So inshallah, I enjoin you, all of you, this is part of your humanitarian duty, part of your Islamic duty, and part of it is also, alhamdulillah, Allah has given you more than people in other places in the world, so at least some of the comforts that you have, if you can sacrifice them for the benefit of the others, this you'll be rewarded for in this life and the hereafter, inshallah. Wa sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Awareness, fundraising, and boots on the ground. Fantastic. Before I move on to the next part of this event, I want to open the event up to the audience. So if you do have any questions, just put your hand up and we can pass it down. Any questions for us, for our two speakers?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Anwar, which is irrelevant. I'm from Milton Keynes. We were invited by the organization and Mr. Ali Panju. I know him very well. First of all, I want to thank you, everyone, for a wonderful event that you've said. I hope we can have some of this in Milton Keynes as well. The question is to Brother Suleiman, very, very interesting about extremism. What steps people who are bound to go on that path? There are so many bad on internet that people can link into it and get converted to different ideology. I do understand when you mention about the Home Office being supportive, I am, as the chair of IG, which you'll understand where I'm coming from, Mr. Solomon, a trustee of Interfaith Milton Keynes as well. We do quality work there. But for the youngsters, what are the ways that we can support that when they do go on the internet, it's a normal procedures, how do they avoid being influenced of extremism ideology? We've got lots of DIY mullahs and imams, and they've got airtime. How do we prevent the wonderful audience that we see in front at the moment? How do we not only safeguard, educate, but I'm also fascinated and interested by the second part of intranet of faith between different school of thought. It is much needed. And how do we go about? Is this been preached in the mosque education centers, madrasa, about common shared values? We need to bring that forward. Thank you.
On your first question, there is a report out by the Home Office called Roots of Radicalization. In fact, part of the report was finalized at the Montfort University here in Leicester. Keith Vaz, which is, I believe, the constituency MP for this particular area, holds the powerful position of sitting on the Homesec. It makes some interesting reading, but it is one that is normally used by practitioners who follow the road. What do we do as a community? Well, first of all, I'll say that we need to make ourselves aware what our children get up to and what they do. There is ultimately, first and foremost, the issue of parental responsibility. Many parents feel it's okay to give a laptop, a tablet or something, or the child sitting upstairs in the bedroom on the internet, not going outside and thinking that everything is according to what the parents think is right. And the report itself shows that the internet is the single biggest contributor to radicalization of young people, be it far right, religious, whatever the case is. We also need to put pressure on government in relation to how the media operates, because the media continuously gives airtime to those extreme preachers who seem to portray that they are the mainstream. The vast majority of the Muslim community are peace-loving, law-abiding citizens. So the issue about the press, which is very difficult. If you're interested more in this, we had the Leveson inquiry, and in fact I've given evidence to the Leveson inquiry, and you may read some of the evidence that has been placed there in relation to the responsibility of the media as well as government. I think there's a collective responsibility, but what we're very good at doing, which we must move away from, is point fingers at each other and say, well, it's not us, we're all safe, it's that section of community or that, or it's the ultra-conservative, or it's the liberal thinkers. Once we start putting people in these little sort of pigeonholes, we are dividing our community. What we have to say with one voice, it does not matter who does it. As long as it's done by a member of our community, we should be brave enough and strong enough to say we condemn it in its totality. It is unacceptable. I think that point needs to be rammed home. And sometimes we are very apologetic. Sometimes we are a community under siege, and I don't mean to stereotype, sorry if it sounds that way, and we tend to be what we call armchair critics. So we sit at home and complain about the world, but we very rarely go out there. So I think we need to get involved in engagement. And that takes you into the work of interfaith and intrafaith. I'm quite saddened because I personally speak in many churches in the county. I work with churches on the European mainland. I just returned back from Sweden, and the churches are helping the first Muslim community in a place called Norrköping to allow for the first masjid to be built. We're working, in September I'll be back in Norway talking to some of the churches. It's so sad, I find personally, that's easier for people that work in interfaith to go to a church, and quite rightly so, there's nothing wrong, to a synagogue and work, but we very rarely visit masjids of another school of thought within Islam itself. So it seems we seem to have more time for people that are outside the fold of Islam by working closely in interfaith and intrafaith is being left out. So I think we need to reach out for each other. And I think, and I'll be quite honest with you here, I'll put my hands up, and I'll say certainly in Leicester, if you look at the vast majority of the Muslims in Leicester are from the Sunni school of thought, and Shia are very small. So I think the greater responsibility is upon the greater number of people to reach out. So I'll be the first one to put my hand up and say, we must reach out to the other. As we tell the Christian community that they are responsible for interfaith because the church itself is established, been here for a long time, and we've been here relatively for the last 40, 50 years. The same applies between Shia and Sunni. If the Sunnis are in the majority, then I think they should also reach out. Being a Sunni as well, I'll be the first one to say, should reach out to the Shia brothers and say, let's come on a common platform and talk of issues of commonality. Our differences will never be sorted. They've been there for hundreds of years, and they may stay there for hundreds of years. But that is an academic, that's something for the ulama, that is something for the imams to deal with, and average person on the street should just reach out to the other. And I think the word here is we should respect. Normally people use the word tolerance. I said move from the word of tolerance, because tolerance simply means I don't really like you, but I'll tolerate you, to a position of respect. So let's respect each other. That is what is, I think, needed.
Thank you so much. We must now move on to the second part of this event. This event was organized to not only raise awareness of the Syria issue, but to also build brotherhood between the Sunni and Shia schools of faith, but to also give a platform to youth within Leicester to give their findings and their research to a more wider public. So without further ado, I'm pleased to have Kumel Jaffer with us today, a graduate of Applied Biomedical Science from Bradford University, Muhammad Ali Miraj, a graduate of Accounting and Finance Management from Loughborough University, and Hassan Abbas, an undergraduate of philosophy at Lancaster University, here with us today to share their thoughts on Syria as well. So, with the first topic in mind, which is Syrian scholarship and religious educational institutions. Brother Kumel, could you tell us more about the importance of Syrian scholarship and religious seminaries in Syria?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. With the permission of our respected scholar, firstly I'd like to say that it's a pleasure to be here, and I think it's a brilliant initiative to bring our communities together. In answer to your question, Syria plays host to various diverse number of institutions and Islamic seminaries, including those of the schools of our brothers in faith, the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, as well as the Shia Ithna Ashari. Now, the schools of the Shia Ithna Ashari are located around the Haram of Bibi Zainab alayhi salam. And amongst these include one of the largest and the oldest, dating back to the 1975, is the Hawza Ilmiya al-Zainabiyya, which is under the Ayatollah Hassan Shirazi, and has the largest library consisting of 20,000 books, which is right next to the Haram. The houses of our brothers in faith are in Damascus. Many are located there, and I think it's referring back to what Brother Suleiman Nagdi said about how the Syrian community is very respectful of other communities and our brothers in faith, which is the reason why a lot of the Ayatollahs saw the opportunity to establish hawzas in these areas.
So the tolerant environment within Syria basically fostered seminaries for both Shia and Sunni in Syria. Is that correct? Yeah.
Definitely. The cohesion between the communities was key in allowing us to establish so many houses there. And it's just unfortunate that due to the ongoing crisis, that a lot of the houses had to be closed down. There was also the fact that some of these houses were within people's homes. Some people allocated a room or 2 rooms, and students lived there as well. And these were all had to be closed down due to the pressure there, which is very unfortunate. But we can see that how through that brotherhood we were able to establish so many. The spreading of knowledge was carried out. And that's something that we've lost out on because of the crisis there.
I would now invite our 2 speakers here today to contribute their thoughts towards this particular issue as well.
Well, it's very simple. Our first ayah talks about Iqra bismi, recite in the name of thy Lord. The issue of education is of paramount importance. I'd be saddened to find that if libraries were closed down or destroyed in any section of the world, it's a downfall of society. One simply has to look at it from a historical point of view, whether it was the Mughal Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, etc. There have been empires that were created that tried to wipe out history and knowledge of a particular civilization in order to superimpose it with their own. And we've seen the destruction that's caused. Islam is very rich. If you look at the 700-800 years rule in Muslim Spain, and the age of learning and the whole European Renaissance was as a result of Islamic thought, sciences that brought it to the forefront. And somehow we have lost some of it. And I believe the reason we've lost some of it and we need to regain it is we very often walking forward but looking backwards. So we talk about the past glories of Islam without thinking what we're going to do in the future for our next generation. So I'll be sad if those scholars and those particular institutions are in some way closed down, destroyed, because once you destroy knowledge, then it is the downfall of all societies. I think we all have to work together to ensure that knowledge prevails. In fact, certainly, and I'm sure it might be in the Shia tradition, but certainly in the Sunni tradition, the issue about jihad that talks about the ones that are excused from that particular responsibility are the scholars, because they believe that if the scholars leave and go and fight and lose, then what happens at that particular time? Knowledge ends. Same as when we take prisoners of war. For those that repent and turn back and educate and become teachers are then given the freedom. So it just shows that Islam plays a very important role in relation to scholarship.
With regards to Syria, we can look at the history and see that not only were there companions of the Prophet who resided there, but also of the second generation who narrated a hadith from the first generation of the companions. Some of them lived there, some of them were born there, and some of them died there. We have, for example, the shrine of Hijr Nadi, which one of my friends will discuss about in a minute. But the history of Syria is rich with scholarship. In the year 80 Hijri, for example, around the year 80 Hijri, two characters named Ma'bad al-Juhani and Ghaylan al-Dimashqi. These guys were living in Damascus. They preached the theology that we have free will, we're not predestined, which was against what the government of the time was teaching, that you are subjugated because God wills it, you are defeated because God wills it, I have power over you because God wills it. These two characters were saying, actually, no, we have free will. We can be against the government because we're not forced to follow them. These two men were executed. They were individuals with this kind of ideology. They were executed at the time. But that was in the year 80 Hijri. We are now in the year of 1434. And since then, we have had dozens of scholars who are either born in Damascus or lived in Damascus and died in Damascus and left behind so much heritage for us. One of the key characters I want to mention is Sayyid Muhsin al-Amili. This scholar was originally from Lebanon. He went to study in Iraq and then he went back to Damascus. This is where he lived and this is where he is buried. While he was there, he saw what the French mandate was doing at the time. You will know that Syria used to be governed by the French. This was before their independence. And they saw that the best schools, the place where education was of the highest quality, was in either the Jesuit schools or the Catholic schools, which were run by the French. And a lot of people were sending their children to these schools because they wanted the best education. And the Muslims were suffering because they didn't have any high quality schools. And he decided to set up two schools, which the quality of education which was very, very high and of a similar quality to that of the Jesuit schools. The first school is Al-Muhsiniyya and the second is Al-Yusufiyya. They still exist till today. So this was set up in the 1920s and almost 100 years later these schools are still there. They are for the benefit of primary and secondary and high school. And they are there for girls and boys as well. And we see that this person was able to think ahead, look beyond the pale of politics and sectarianism. And many people have graduated from the school. Some of them are Christian, some of them are Sunnis, Alawis, Shia, whatever you can think of. People have gone to these schools because they were the best of the time. Until today, they exist and they're not overtly Islamic schools. They have an Islamic ethos, but they're there to teach you the subjects that the state should teach you anyway. But the quality is so high. So until today, when we are upset about what's happening in Syria, it's because we're afraid of losing this heritage that has existed for hundreds of years. So inshallah, by doing some events like this, we can spread awareness of how important Syria is and how dear it is to our hearts.
Thank you so much. Our next theme is, if I can get it up. Okay, the next theme is Syrian shrines and national heritage sites. So Muhammad Ali, how has the war in Syria affected the shrines and heritage sites in Syria?
Ahsan, thank you very much for the very beautiful question. Just before, it is important, I think, to make it clear and for us to understand that the establishment of graves is a practice or a sunnah which has been there from the Holy Prophet, and it has been continued from that time. And as such, Islam, the religion of Islam, as any other religion, places great importance as to the importance of these graves and demands respect towards it. If I start with one of the biggest cities in Syria, Aleppo, it's the most populous city, but also Aleppo is one of the oldest civilizations to have inhabited life throughout the world. According to UN, a body called UNESCO has placed Aleppo in one of its top World Heritage Sites list in 1986. And in that city, there's a mosque called Masjid Zakaria, or as others know it as Masjid Umayyad, the Umayyad Masjid. That masjid has been there from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And it's a heritage site for us Muslims, but also for the Arab culture. And as such, the minaret of that mosque has been completely destroyed. It has been completely demolished, so much so that the fighting and the war actually happened in the masjid itself. So you can imagine how much it has been destroyed, and so much so the UN's body has placed that minaret as one of its endangered list. So in Aleppo, we can see that a lot of destruction is happening to the Arab culture. Also, in the same country, in the same city, Aleppo, I'm sure many of you have heard the story of a Christian monk who took in the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam for a night and placed it in a stone. Well, the insurgents have also attacked that place and destroyed it completely, as well as the shrine or the gravesite of Sayyid Muhsin, or he's also known as Sayyid Muhassin, who is the son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who died during the journey.
What other places are there in Syria which are of huge historical, cultural, religious significance?
There is a very, very famous battle in Islam which took place in Riqqa. The battle was called Siffin. That place, although there are unconfirmed sources that the sites of Uwais al-Qarani, the companion of the Holy Prophet, and Ammar Yasir, also the companion of the Holy Prophet, although there are unconfirmed sources saying that the shrines have been demolished, that province has been held by the insurgents and by the rebels for a very, very long time. And it will not be a surprise if we do find out that they have been demolished.
And very, very briefly, very, very shortly, I mean, what are your views on the destruction of these sites?
Okay, now we've seen from the media that the desecration of the tomb site of one of the companions of the Holy Prophet took place. Only on Friday, a mortar shell fell on the shrine of Lady Zainab, salamullahi alayha, and through that, a caretaker, Mr. Romani, passed away. And all that, I think, just fuels, like respected Brother Sulaiman said, all this fuels to the war and to the sectarian divide. This war has already claimed thousands of lives, 90,000, just over 90,000 to be precise, and has displaced millions of people. I think one of the main views I have, according to the theme given to me, is that Syria is one of the oldest civilizations to have taken place, and it is a true gem for our Islamic culture, but also for the Arab history and culture. And to preserve it, I think, is the real role and responsibility of not just Muslims, but of humanity itself.
Thank you. We must now move on to our third and final theme for this evening, which is the role of Syria during the advent of Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Brother Hassan, we've heard that Syria will play a massive role in the times of Imam Mahdi. Could you highlight for us exactly what will be the role of Syria?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I think before we answer this question, it's much better if we examine one of the keywords here, which is Imam Mahdi. And then if we have time, we can probably go through the similarities that we have within the Sunni school of thought and between the Sunni school of thought and Shia school of thought. Can you please recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? Imam Mahdi, or the concept of a savior, is we all know is fundamental to all religions, and especially within the religion of Islam, there's great importance to the coming of the Messiah, and to have a relationship with the Mahdi, and to know the Mahdi, even between our brothers, I mean the Shia Sunni school of thought. There are many similarities, and I think it suffices for us to just quote one hadith from the Holy Prophet, which says that Mamata walam ya'rif imam zamani mata mitatan jahiliya. The one who dies without recognizing the Imam of his time, in brackets Imam Mahdi, he dies the death of the times of Jahiliyyah. So this shows, first of all, the importance of Imam Mahdi to our faith, both as a Shia and a Sunni, and that Islam is incomplete without the belief in Mahdi. Now I just go quickly to the similarities between the Shiites and the Sunnis on the concept of Mahdi. There are many, but among them we have this belief that the Shias believe that the Mahdi is the direct descendant of the Holy Prophet, as you all know, through Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. Even within the Sunnis, some denominations, like for example the Naqshbandi Sufi order, is widely believed that Mahdi, he is also the son of Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. So I mean, we have many similarities like these ones. And Mahdi, as our elder and respected Sulaiman Mahdi said, that like the Prophet is a mercy for mankind. He's the mercy for us all Muslims. Similarly, Mahdi is a concept of hope. It's a concept of optimism. It's a concept for everyone, not just Sunni Shiites, but everyone, including all religions. And I think that one of the titles of Imam Mahdi is also Rahmatullah al-Wasi', that he's the far-reaching mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that mercy extends for everyone. It's just not for Shiite or Sunni. That said, let's just go back to the question. Syria, or rather Syrian leadership, it will play a major role when in the time of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, and the leader, as we all know, is famously known as the Sufyani. And according to one school within the Sunni, a scholar from within the Maliki tradition, he's quoted to have said that one name of the Sufyani could be Urwa bin Muhammad. And we all know that he's gonna wage a war against the Mahdi, and he ruled for 9 months almost, and then briefly, if I just mention, he'll head towards the Imam, and then on the way to Mecca, while trying to attack the Imam and his army, which includes all people, let me just say that again, they'll be swallowed up by the earth, and then that would be the end of the leader. But in briefly, if I can conclude by saying that the role of Sufyani will be to spread corruption, deceit, war, blood, and his aim would be to destroy the fundamental principles of humanity, and which we are seeing, in the to some extent we are seeing these in the current conflict.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time, so we must move on to our closing remarks. Brother Sajjad, in conclusion, why is the conflict in Syria so important?
There's a prophetic hadith that says, "Man asbaha wa lam yahtam bi umur al-muslimin asbaha kafiran." The one who wakes and does not, or wakes up for the day and does not care about the affairs of a Muslim is not one of them. So, firstly, for that reason, we should care about Syria because it involves lives of Muslims, and we should give our utmost attention to it. Also, because what we have said about the history of Syria, the importance of the shrines there, of the knowledge that was taught there. And until 2011, for example, SAWAS, one of the colleges of University of London, used to give students the option to go and study, if they were studying Arabic and Islamic studies, to either go to Cairo or to go to Damascus. And this has been going on for around 120 years in the University of London, to send students abroad to learn Arabic and to learn more about Islam. And unfortunately, this was stopped in 2011 because of the situation. So I think one of our duties is to make sure that at any point in time we forget our humanitarian duty or our Islamic duty. And a place with a heritage such as Syria should definitely be given all our attention.
I think we should look at Syria slightly differently, not look at it in relation to its territory and its lines, because part of this is history, part of its post-colonial, and how countries were created as nationhood. When we talk about the greater area that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed, Masjid al-Aqsa, which is next, and Tokar Sham, which encompasses Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, part of Iraq. This is part of the greater area that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks and reminds us about. So we should move away from thinking about it as just a border. This is a land blessed by the Almighty, actually mentioned in history. It is in the very heart of Islam, and if something happens, it's as if one is putting the dagger in the very heart of Muslims. There are conflicts in all parts of the world, but certain parts of the world demand more attention than others, simply because historically and because Islamically we have great attachment to certain parts, like the Haram Sharif, of course, in Mecca, in Masjid Nabi, in Medina, etc. So there are certain places. For the worldwide Muslim community, it is far more than simply an area or a piece of land. It touches the very heart, the very nerve of the Muslim community. We should all be working towards to avoid the bloodshed that's taking place there, and certainly not going down a sectarian line, because that will not benefit anybody. And we should also, most powerful of everything else before we leave tonight here, is something that we tend to forget, is supplicate, make dua to Allah, because there's nothing more powerful than to make dua. And as Muslims, and this is the time of the month when our dua is accepted, please pray for the Syrian people that Allah gives them, grants them peace and harmony.
Thank you. Before we conclude, I've just got a question here from the audience. I'm a Shia lady and mother. I have a few Sunni lady acquaintances. How do I reach out to my Sunni sisters? What kind of practical steps can I take? I think I'll pass it on to Sajjad first to answer that one, sorry.
As I mentioned earlier on, I said the first point of change is always awareness. So teaching people, educating people, yourself and your family, those around you, about similarities and differences, and then with regards to Syria, the situation on the ground. It might be difficult sometimes to expect people to educate themselves because the media doesn't portray things in the right way, and sometimes just the language the media uses is enough to confuse the uninitiated. So my recommendation firstly and foremost is always to focus on similarities between both sects, both faiths, between schools, and secondly to focus on the attributes that make us all human beings, and that is that we all try to take care of each other and try to support each other, not that we try to divide and kill and attack. So if we are able to explain the best traits, for example, of Shia Islam to those from other schools of thought, we look at the words of Ali ibn Abi Talib, our great Imam. We look at what he says in Nahj al-Balagha, the letter that he writes to Malik, who is the governor of Egypt. He says people are of two kinds. Either your brother in faith or someone who is a human like you, someone similar to you in creation. So in both times, you're obligated to be good to them. Because either he's going to be a Muslim like you have to take care of him, or he's going to be a human like you have to take care of him as well. Now when you say to people who are non-Shia, when you say this is what our Imam, the holiest Imam, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib says, they'll be surprised, some of them, they've never heard of this. And these are the teachings that we want to follow and we want to spread. So I want to tell the sister to focus inshallah on education and look at these golden sayings and these golden pieces of advice that we have from our holy Imams.
If I can move on from there and simply say that there are two ways. There is one that we can go to the library, pick up books, borrow a book, and read about the other, or actually reach out the humanity of the other without any preconditions. In other words, we accept them for what they are. And it's very hard to say how friendship can be made because different people approach things differently. Some are more confident, others are less. But I always say that if your intention is sincere, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you and will support you. Just reach out to the Sunni sisters and do not talk, believe me, do not talk about what makes us different. Talk about, first and foremost, you are two sisters in the faith. You may be sisters, you may be mothers, you may have commonality first. Reach out to those common human issues first before you go into anything further. And the other issues, as I've always said before, leave it to the ulama and the scholars to discuss the rights and the wrongs of difference. For you and me, this is not our role. Our role is simply to reach out to the other and embrace them with all sincerity.
Thank you so much. We are really out of time now. I'm getting pressure. I'm getting text after text to say to stop. So we must stop now, I'm afraid. I'm sure you've all got questions to ask. But on that note, I think it's a good point to end. So sadly, we have now reached the end of today's program, but I'm sure you're all very hungry. So before we do break our fast, I want to thank all our speakers tonight on behalf of MKSI Leicester, Brother Suleiman Nagdi, Brother Sajjad Jihad, Brother Kumal Jafar, Brother Muhammad Ali Miraj, and Brother Hassan Abbas. Big thank you to you. But also a big thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. Thank you so much. We hope this event fosters better relations between our two communities and is a stepping stone towards greater cohesion. Thank you so much. Salawat.
Assalamu alaikum. Just a few quick announcements. There's a container going around just now. It's World Federation, our parent organization, has organized a Syrian appeal, and all the funds will go to Syria, inshallah. And also, just some advertisements here. This is a toy collection for Syria. You can bring all your unwanted, clean, good condition toys, and you can donate it to children in Syria. There's more information in the foyer. There's some of these posters in the foyer, and it gives it's information about when to give your toys, where to give them, the address. It's on Sunday, the 4th of August, 2013. It's more in the foyer. There's also an Eid festival. It's in Milton Keynes. Again, it's building bridges between diverse communities. So there's this poster will be in the foyer for you to look at. And also, just again, I want to advertise this interfaith program. It's happening next Saturday, following Saturday, Saturday 17th of July. Again, please do register your names in the foyer, the desk on the left-hand side. So if you can register your names, and it's not just Muslim communities, it's different communities, Christian, Jewish communities as well, inshallah. I will now introduce Brother Jawad, who will quickly talk to you about Camp UK just before Maghrib prayers. Salawat.